You're listening to The Journey podcast. The Journey is a ministry of Southcrest Baptist Church for those in college or college-aged. We hope this podcast helps you find your greatest pleasure and purpose in Jesus.
Hey, guys, this is really important. We have to start here right now. Listen, we have figured out what's going to happen when the world ends.
Yes, we've figured
exactly
it out.
all the details.
All the details.
And we're going to just like lay it all on the table today.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's true, but maybe we'll get there. Who knows? Yeah. It's it's good to be back.
Yeah, it is.
After spring break.
Yeah.
You know.
You rested up, got your energy back?
Yeah, I think so. We were in South Padre. For those of you who don't know, South Padre Island. We were in South Padre and with some Journey students and a bunch of other college students from across the country, just ministering to spring breakers, and it was great. It was exhausting. It was a lot of fun. It was, man. I told someone this today. Shout out Nick Gardner. I told him, man, like in that environment, I don't know what it is. Actually, I think I do know what it is, and I can explain it. But I feel more comfortable around those types of people than I do like professional churchgoers.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is like I can just be real. Yeah. Like I don't have to like put on a show. I don't have to like present myself as something else. Like, and it kind of opens my eyes, and this isn't what we're going to talk about, but it opens my eyes a little bit too, to like why I think Jesus felt more comfortable eating with like sinners and tax collectors than he did like the Pharisees.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a great week. So many just, awesome stories that we could tell. Of just really cool.
One big story. Tell us one big story. Highlight.
Yeah. Really cool story. So if you watched the most previous podcast with Charlie, and Faith, shout out Faith.
Let's go.
Yeah. Faith, you did a great job. Way to go. We did kind of an on the ground, on site video call with Charlie. And now this is not going to be a shock to people, but Charlie's my brother, 16 years younger. And when we were in South Padre, there was a night, I think it might have been Wednesday. Yeah, I think it was Wednesday. Well, early Thursday morning at like 3:30 in the morning. They picked up Charlie and those on the van. They picked up these two guys. I can't remember where they picked them up from, but they were taking them back to their hotel. They get on the van, really great conversations. They said that they like turned spiritual pretty fast. The conversations did, and but they get to the destination, and the guys are like, ready to kind of get off the van, but they exchange numbers with Charlie, and so they get off the van, and the van is coming back to the church where we all were, and Charlie gets a text from one of the guys, and it was like, hey, would y'all be willing to come pick us back up? I feel like we need to continue this conversation. So they turn around, go pick the guys back up, and like they get on the van, and it like immediately, as soon as they get on the van, it's, what do we need to do? Like, like what do we need to do here? Which is kind of like a softball question, right? Like, it's like, man, thanks for asking that, right? And so I think Charlie just kind of like talked to him a little bit more, prayed with him, and then was just kind of like, I think you're ready for Jesus. Like, I think that's where you're at. And they were like, I think we are too. And so they prayed to receive Christ on the van. And the next day, my dad called me and was just like, how's it going? And I was like, man, it's going great. But I think you need to like call Charlie because he's got some really cool stuff. I think he wants to tell you just about leading a couple people to Christ last night. And my dad was like, really? Like that is awesome. And he said last night at like midnight, your mom and I like just kind of woke up out of sleep. And I told her, I was like, we need to start praying for Charlie. And she was like, why? Is like something wrong with him? And he was like, no, like I just feel this urge right now that we need to just kind of get on the ground and just start praying for Charlie. And so he said that they spent at midnight around 30, 40 minutes just on the ground praying for Charlie. Not knowing that in like an hour or two, Charlie's getting ready to lead people to Christ, right? And so like, just like, here's what I think is so cool about this. Like, that's not uncommon, like on that trip. Like that stuff happens like all the time. And that's what I love about it is like you just see God work in some really cool, unique ways. And so, man, I told the students last night, I hope the pictures, the videos, the things that they saw on Instagram created a sense of FOMO because I want more to go next year. So it was great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was a great trip.
That's so great. Yeah, I had a brief conversation with Andrew you last night. Or I kind of same thing. I was like, okay, real quick, what's your highlight? Give me a story. I love hearing the stories. And I'll let him share his story. But like after hearing his story, we're just talking about how cool it is to get to like see God doing the work, right? Like transforming lives. Like, and I was telling Andrew, like a pretty common thing that I'll say in prayer before our worship services in the venue or the journey is just like try to, in humility, like ask the Lord that we would get to see the harvest, right? Like which we're talking about, like a lot of times we use this term, like we plant seeds and stuff, but a lot of time, because of our culture, there's a lot of things, not that we don't get to see this ever, but yeah, there's a lot of times where we're just remaining faithful and trying to stay obedient to the Lord and what he's called us to do. But we oftentimes don't get to see the harvest, right? And so it's such a blessing, like that y'all got to see that. You'll get to be there and be like, oh my gosh, it's 2 a.m. and that's changing people's lives. Like, it's so cool.
And like, and I don't want to paint a picture that is like overtly like, just like, I mean, throughout the week, there was conversation after conversation after conversation of like, man, we're so close. Like we're so close to seeing someone give their life to Jesus. But it never got to that point.
Yeah.
And so I remember the last day, like, man, just praying, like, I think it was that Wednesday, like just praying, like, God, would you allow our students to see someone come to Christ this week? And 3 of them did, you know? Awesome. And man, we got to see 31 people get baptized in the Gulf of America, baby.
Gulf of America, let's go.
And it was it was all. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
It was, and I think I shared this with you, but like I think for a lot of the students it was just a kind of a culture shock. Like they've been around alcohol, but not to that extent, like not to that extreme. And so like there's this huge contrast of like what they're doing and what we're doing. It's like in South Padre, you have this bar, Clayton's, which their claim to fame is like it's the biggest beach bar in Texas. And they have this massive stage on the beach where they do concerts, things like that. And so we're at Clayton's and we're doing baptisms in the Gulf of America and baptizing people, like yelling, celebrating, and there's thousands of spring breakers behind us. Some of them actually came out to like watch. They're like, what's going on? Like something cool's going on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so they come out to watch it. But on the stage, like right behind us as we're doing these baptisms, there's 6 or 7 girls on stage having like a twerk off competition. And so it's just like
crazy. Yeah, the
it's
contrast.
such a contrast.
Yeah, like
right?
right there on the beach.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Baptisms, twerk off.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it really is. It's like, man, it's like you are shining a light in darkness.
Yeah, right in the middle of it.
Yeah. Right in the middle of it. And so it is a cool trip.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it's really the like we could go to some other country and do some like really cool gospel work. But it's really it's like one of the only trips that I know for the amount of money that we pay where you get like hands-on experience with people that you're going to be around when you get back to school, you know? Like that's I think what is really cool about it is the same people that you were ministering to there are the same people that are here in Lubbock. And so that's what I love about the trip, man. It's a great trip.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, I mean, I definitely want to talk about the message last night. I love it. So good. But at the same time, like, love hearing the stories. Like, really, that's like I said, kind of my line to anybody that went Tate.
Well, man, like,
just like, hey, give me one story. Like, I just love hearing the stories.
I think some of the stuff we talked about last night, like the difficulties, the hardships, the deception, because we talked about, the journey to the cross and Jesus. It's Tuesday, and there's so much that happens on Tuesday, but one of the things he does specifically is he talks about the end of the world. And like, here's what to expect. You can expect hardship. You can expect difficulty. And I think we definitely saw some of that like at Beach Reach, because there are people there that like did not like what you were doing. Like there were people there, like there were college students there that like would specifically get on the van to make fun of you. Like, they would like try to have conversations with you so that they could make fun of you. Yeah. And like, that was a common occurrence. Like, we're going to ridicule you, because of what you believe and what you're doing right now.
Did everybody handle that well? Did that happen quite a bit?
It didn't happen on our van that I know of, but it happened on several vans. And I think that it's one of those things where it just kind of was like, it is what it is. Like it's going to happen. And so like you're going to experience those things, and we experienced them at Beach Reach. We even experienced them from like there were street preachers there, right? That are at the bar at night who are yelling, at these spring breakers, wearing shirts, drunks going to hell. Drunks are going to hell. And they hate what we're doing. Like you can go find YouTube videos, like they make videos of Beach Reachers to like bash like what we're doing. But what's interesting is they kind of stay on their corner. This is at Louis. They stay on their corner, and we're at Louis doing midnight pancake breakfast. So like anyone that wants a van ride, they come out of the bar, they get in line, and while they're waiting in line, if they want some pancakes, we'll take them to get pancakes while they wait for their van to pick them up. Yeah. One of the coordinators noticed one of the street preacher girls was like over on our side talking with some of the spring breakers. And so he goes over to her and he's like, hey, like, what are you doing here? And she told him, she said, the group I'm with, she said, all I want to do is tell people that Jesus loves them, and the group I'm with does not do that well. Wow. And she said, so I wanted to come over here and just tell people that Jesus loves them. And the coordinator guy was like, you're more than welcome to stay over here as long as you need to. Yeah. And so like what's interesting is we're getting it from spring breakers at times, like making fun of us. And then we're also getting hate from quote unquote Christians, these street preachers, who hate what we're doing as well. And so it's this weird tension.
I'm so confused about. I'm trying to rationalize how you would hate what the beach reach is doing, but anyways, yeah. But
Well, and I think I think no. I think it is like you can't rationalize it, but in their head, I think it's more for their benefit, like because they need to cast judgment. Like that's what they need to do. Like that's how they feel validated is casting judgment on people, whether it's the spring breakers, whether it's the beach reachers. We see the same thing on campus. Like there's a couple of people that come on campus every semester, Brother Jed, and all they do is just like yell at you and tell you you're going to hell. If you're like based on like, I mean, I remember when I was in school, they came on campus and this girl walks by. She's wearing Nike shorts. I remember that she's wearing Nike shorts, and she walks by them, not even talking to them, and he yells at her. He goes, "Hey, you're a whore."
Okay.
And
wow.
And like she like it just like you could see it like go from her. Like she was so devastated. She was like, "What?" And
that's terrible.
and like that's their mode for evangelism. Like is like it's loving for me to tell you that. But I think it's more for their benefit than it is like an effective way to evangelize, right? But just kind of back to like to kind of bring it back to this, like if you're following Jesus, like you can expect those things. Like you shouldn't be surprised when that stuff happens. It shouldn't shock you, you know?
Yeah, from like the
I feel like I'm getting further and further like this.
Oh yeah.
You know.
I gotta cool off. Sorry, the comment about the yelling at the girl. It's like makes me a little angry. But that makes sense, right? Like because it talks about in that passage in Matthew 24, about Jesus talking about false teachers, false prophets, and then certainly he's also talking about more like openly anti, which I guess he's lumping them all into that antichrist like label that you mentioned in John, but the like overtly antichrist, and then the I guess like covertly antichrist, like claiming to be for Christ and then calling people stuff like that,
right? And I I feel like I've talked about this for several weeks, whether it's in the venue or on Tuesday night. But like that's typically how Satan works. Like he's not gonna like just be so out of pocket with like anti-truth that because if he is, we're not gonna listen to it.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna like there's gonna be enough quote unquote truth in what he's saying to deceive us. And that's kind of his point. And so like with the street preachers, like hell is a reality. Like it is a reality that is necessary to think about. And so like when like I can kind of understand like when people get attached to that, I can understand why they would get attached to that because it is a reality. But I also don't think it's an effective way to evangelize someone. And that's why I think it's anti how Jesus would do things and how he would approach things. And so, yeah, I think it's really interesting. Yeah. Just kind of the tension that you see there. You're kind of getting it from both sides.
Yeah. That's wild. Man, yeah. It's like, I'm trying not to get, not to get too like tunnel visioned on the frustration of that, but
yeah,
it's so frustrating. So I guess now's the part where we solve the end times. Is that the next step here?
Yes. This is where we tell you when and where.
Yeah.
And
the hour. Because we can determine the hour, right?
We can determine the hour. Yes. We can do all that. I do think I think I do want to clear maybe something up. When Jesus was talking about like the destruction of the temple,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't necessarily know that it was going to happen in AD 70.
Right.
Like we have kind of hindsight now to like look back and go, hey, this is what Jesus was talking about. Like he was talking about the destruction of the temple in AD 70 when he was saying this in Matthew 24.
Yeah.
But in Matthew 24, when Jesus is talking to his disciples, they didn't necessarily, like, they didn't know, 40 years from now is when it's going to happen.
Right.
But I think what Jesus is doing in that chapter is he's saying the destruction of the temple in the last days, like if you can understand the context behind the destruction of the temple, you'll understand what the last days are going to look like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think, right. Like it's such and maybe most of the people listening to this, are like, yeah, I don't really care. Like, but it really, it is a like long time, within the church, like debated, like these details are just constantly debated.
Yeah.
Right. And some people have really strong opinions on how it's all supposed to unfold. End time's supposed to unfold. I mean, yeah, because like there's two passages in here that always, like, if you read down, that always like are the ones that I always go like, oh yeah, see, this stuff is just so confusing. Like, and the two I was trying to find them really quick. It's right. It's one where he says, this generation, where is it? Like he says, this generation will not pass, or something like that. Before, you know, all of these events will take place before this generation passes, or something. I'm trying to remember where that verse is. It's in 24, but then like a paragraph down, he says, where is it? I wish I had pulled this up before, but like just thought about it. But like, but it's like later he says kind of a statement that seems to be the opposite, like that it is not going to happen anytime soon.
Right.
And so anyways, well, it's not important, I think, right now for us to figure it out.
Verse 34. Verse 33. In the same way, when you see all these things, recognize that he is near at the door. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things take place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then he continues on right through all of this to say that, talk about how the Son of Man is coming in an hour you do not expect, and and I'm still like not finding that other side of that verse that I was talking about, but it's so confusing when we try to figure out like all of the, like we try to sort out all the details, what has happened, what's about, like what's gonna happen, what are we in the middle of, and what's yet to come, right? Like, and when you were like talking about Daniel's predictions for for judgment and the future and stuff like that. But that's something like, I don't know, it's tough because I'm nervous to like try to ask too many questions, because again, it's like you quickly get into this like, oh gosh, this is a big old can of worms, you know what I mean? But like, what, like, help me, because and anyone listen, right? Like, right, there's things like the abomination of desolation, stuff that we talked about, like Titus. What is it?
The abomination of desolation. Most scholars agree that was a person who came about 200 years, after Daniel gave that prophecy.
Okay. Yeah.
And that guy's name was Antiochus Epiphanes.
Okay.
And Antiochus came into Jerusalem, and like Titus did later on, came into Jerusalem, and with his soldiers marched up to the temple, destroyed the temple, but along with that, set up like sacrifices and altars to Zeus, and they would sacrifice like pigs and things like that. So really desecrating the temple, not just destroying it, but like desecrating it. And so this is like when I think when Jesus mentions this in Matthew 24, and I said this last night, but I think what Jesus is doing is he's saying, hey, remember that guy that Daniel talked about, that Daniel prophesied about, that came hundreds of years later? Like, that's what you need to kind of have in your mind when it comes to like not just the destruction of the temple, but also the last days.
Yeah.
Because remember, like, Jesus doesn't tell us necessarily which question he's answering here.
Right.
Which I think is purposeful.
Yeah.
Because I think he's equating like, hey, these are going to be very similar. Like if you understand what happens with the destruction of the temple and like everything that took place and how like terrible it is, you're going to understand the last days as well. Yeah. And so I think that's why Jesus doesn't do that. Like why he doesn't tell us, here's the question I'm answering for you right now. Here's the next question I'm answering for you right now, you know?
Yeah. Cause like, the big takeaways for us are that we generally are in the last days, right? Like, again, there's all this debate that you could get into of like, what does that really mean? And tribulation and all this kind of stuff, right? But like, we're in the last days, and Jesus is coming soon.
Yeah.
Right. We don't know the day or the hour, right? But like he's coming soon.
You know that song?
Which one?
Soon and very soon.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about hymns this morning.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the name of the song, the hymn. Maybe it is.
I like can't hear it in my head. But I think
soon
I know.
Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. Do y'all know it?
Come on.
No? Okay. All right.
Scratch that one off. Yeah.
That one's not going in the venue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's the takeaway, right? He's coming soon.
Yeah.
And
well, that's what he says, right? In verse 27, he says, like lightning that comes from the east and the west, like will be the coming of the Son of Man. Like he's going to come in the midst of darkness. Yeah. And so, like in the last days when we feel, like, as we are, it's not going to be silent. It's not going to be secretive. That's why I mentioned last night, like, is there such a thing as secret lightning? No, like, when it happens. And I think that's Jesus's point. Like, you're going to know when I come.
Yeah. Yeah. As people, something I think that's natural as we get older, right? Is like, right. Your life goes on, like you get closer to death, right? Yeah. Because everybody's going to die. It's easy. I think I can see even this happening in my own, like in mind and heart, like of kind of gradually being more and more concerned with reading the tea leaves, right? Like with trying to figure out like when is it going to happen? When is Jesus going to come back? And like, what's the end look like? But in the other side of that is like for college students, for younger college students, right? I think it's a lot of times you mentioned this kind of at the beginning of your sermon last night, where it's like, you might just be kind of like, hey, I got my whole life ahead of me. Yeah. Like, I don't really care.
Yeah. Serious. Yeah.
But I think that's not the encouragement is not for you to get really obsessed about end times. Right. But it is for college students, I think, to help them see and all of us to recognize that point that like he is coming soon. Yeah. And so, it's like, we don't have time, like, right. Don't wait around. And something that like I was thinking about as you were talking last night, that like was just thinking about all of the ways that we get attacked by the enemy, right? Like man, everything, all of entertainment and apps and stuff like that, and social media and all that kind of stuff. It's just like constantly coming at us, and it just like popped into my head of just thinking like, man, I don't have time for that, right? Like, and he's coming soon. Yeah. Man, how do we need to wrap this up? Like, what do we need to leave people with, Tyler?
Yeah, I think, man, we can wrap it up with what we wrapped last night up with. I think Jesus tells us this to prepare us, right? And there's several other things that I said, but I think that's one that we can definitely end on. Like, he wants us to be prepared for the things that we're going to experience while we wait for him to come back. Don't be naive. Like, recognize that life is going to be hard. Like, as you get older, it doesn't get easier. Life just gets harder and harder and harder. But if we know that, we can recognize, man, this is temporary. Like, one day, this isn't going to be what I experience. And so it's temporary. And then recognize that there's deception all around us. And so, like, live with a critical eye. Like, recognize that the things you listen to or the things you watch may not be improving your life, right? It may not be improving your life I'm not even going to go there. Like, just live more critically. Like, take note of the things that you are putting into your life. Because what you're taking in is ultimately going to be what comes out and what influences you. And I think that's Jesus's point. Is he's saying that stuff can deceive you, and it's really easy to fall into a trap of deception. You may think, yeah, no, that won't be me, but I promise you, like, it can be any of us. Like, any of us can fall to deception. And so, man, I think that's what I would say is those are things to take away. Like, he's coming back, and it's going to be glorious, but we live in the meantime.
Yeah.
In the meantime, these are the things that we just need to be aware of.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, be on guard.
Yeah.
Turn to Jesus. Yeah,
be on guard.
It's good stuff. Hey, thanks for listening today, watching.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys.
It's good to be back.
It is.
And yeah, if you like, our goal here is to help you find your greatest pleasure and purpose in Jesus, and so we hope that this has helped to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Share it, maybe, if it did do that. We love y'all, and you're sent.